the soul is perpetual. It doesn't begin and it doesn't end. I think that we choose at a soul level, we have soul contracts and agreements and all that sort of stuff. So at a soul level, there's a lot of stuff that we choose, yes, certain relationships, but obviously things also unfold here as we live through. Like it's not completely every single day planned. No, I don't believe that. I believe that we choose like key people, key experiences, and all that, but a lot of it unfolds the way that it has to unfold here as we experience this life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Shifting Dimensions podcast, where we explore the unseen, the unknown, and the transformative moments that shift our understanding of reality. I'm your host, Jumi Moses, spiritual seeker and metaphysical investigator, exploring the mysteries of existence. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Gloria Battini. Gloria is a transformational guide, spiritual teacher, an empathetic visionary dedicated to empowering humanity to transcend limitations and step into their highest potential. Her mission is to foster a new earth, one where we live in harmony with the planet, the cosmos, and each other. Through her work, Gloria invites individuals to embrace self empowerment, heal deeply, and align with their soul's true path, creating a ripple effect that touches the world. Gloria, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today here on Shifting Dimensions.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy. I'm very excited.
Yes. Okay, we have quite a few topics to touch on, and I, warned you earlier that we're probably going to go down a few rabbit holes here. But before we even, get into those rabbit holes, first and foremost, I want to talk about your background, how you grew up. Were you always aware that you had psychic abilities, and what was that experience like for you?
I was not aware. I actually thought that that's how everybody was, because I had no words to describe it. I didn't know what it was. I was just a very sensitive child, very, very sensitive child. And it's not even, I know that some people, some mediums, they actually see the spirits with the naked eyes. I don't feel that. I don't see that. I feel spirit around me. I literally feel different presences around me. And so I didn't have a visual for it. And so to me, I just thought that, it was more of an internal experience. So I just thought that that's how everybody worked. I didn't speak about it. I just assumed, but you're young, you're a child, so you don't really know what to do with that. But then I started to sort of connect the dots a little bit more when I lost my first grandparent. And I could, I knew that she wasn't there anymore physically, but yet I could sense that what I felt around me was her. I could sense that it was her. But again, didn't say much because I just thought that that was everyone's experience. But in general, I was just a very, very sensitive, very, very connected child. But I was very much criticized for being too sensitive because I would take things, in a different way than, words would have a different way, and certain things would have a different way. And I was very much criticized for that. And so, as you do, when you're young and you're trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together as you try to grow up a little bit and become a person in this world, I shut down. I shut it down completely. I did not pay attention to it. I didn't think it was anything, as I said, I thought everybody's experience was the same. And even when I lost other grandparents, then growing up, again, same thing. I felt them around me. I felt, but and other people passing, not only grandparents, but other people's passing as well. But I never went down that road. It was never, no, I never got that.
So many people can relate to what you're talking about, right? Because, you have these intuitive abilities when you're younger. It makes you more sensitive, and you're pretty much kind of told, in whether explicitly by adults or you kind of pick it up from social interactions, that you should kind of hold back on these abilities. And then a lot of people end up kind of suppressing that. So you've suppressed these abilities, right? How do you, not right now, I'm talking about like when we go back into your story, right? So we're at the point where you suppress these abilities. How did you find your way back to embracing those psychic abilities and turning those on?
Mm. I went from being very sensitive as a child to shutting it down because it makes other people uncomfortable because I am told that I'm too sensitive, to being completely disconnected throughout my whole teenage years until I was 32. So it was a very, very long time of disconnection. During that time, I was, um, as a teenager in school, I was bullied, but also I was then from the age of 18, I was in a really, really toxic relationship. So all of that created a lot of disconnection. And then once I decided to leave the relationship, I was already, as I said, 32. And it was then that I started to have space inside of me again because I wasn't around the adults that were telling me that I was too sensitive anymore, right? I was my own adult now. I wasn't in a toxic relationship anymore, and I had done a whole lot of healing, mentally and emotionally. And that created a lot of space inside of myself to become curious again about who I actually was at my most authentic. And so from there, I started to just be curious, and then I think it was a year later, a couple of years later, something like that. I was working with a spiritual coach, and during a session, she says, "Oh, you have so many spirits around you." And that was the first time that somebody had ever said anything to me, and that I heard that from the outside. And I said, "I know. I absolutely know. I can feel them." And she goes, "Oh, you can?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Like I never ever have felt alone one day in my life. Like I know that there's stuff around me. I just don't know what to do with it." And she goes, "You should explore it." It was her actually. She says, "You should definitely explore. You should definitely investigate it because it's you want to know what's there. And so that gave me that validation of being like, oh, maybe there is something there, this curiosity that I always had. Maybe there's a reason for it. And I started exploring it a bit more. And then I went and studied my own astrology at the same time, my own birth chart. And there's a lot actually in my birth chart that points to that. And again, I felt even more validated. And so at one point I was like, okay, this is clearly a sign. Like I have to do something with this. I have to do something about this. And so I decided to train. I decided to find, a mentor who I manifested. I totally manifested her. I tell her all the time. And yeah, and then I trained and here we are. Yeah.
Fascinating. And isn't 32 around the time where, according to astrology, where people get to the end of their Saturn return, or am I kind of making that
I'm
up?
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure because I don't think it's the same for everyone. I don't I'm not don't quote me on that. I'm not
Okay.
100% sure. Yeah,
No
I'm not 100%.
worries. And for those who are listening, and please feel free to chime in, because I'm still a baby when it comes to astrological terms and how everything works. But I believe Saturn return, I think we have a few in our lifetime, but the
We do.
first big one tends to happen in the late 20s, early 30s, where you're kind of questioning your life, your purpose, the things that you've been doing. It's kind of like it flips your world upside down a little bit, and you kind of go on this like self-discovery journey. So it's a little unstable at that time. But anyways, fast forward to what you're talking about, with, being 32, going into training, manifesting your mentor, and really getting to a place where you feel comfortable utilizing your psychic ability. So for the listeners who are, for the listeners, just to make sure they fully understand, what is the scope of your psychic abilities, right? You talked about feeling spirits around you when you were younger. You talked about that being, mediumship.
Yeah.
What is the scope of your psychic abilities, and could you define them?
So I am a clairsentient, clairvoyant, I do have, well, actually, by now they're all quite developed. But what I started with was definitely clairsentience. That was the first one for me. And then the second was clairvoyance, which is the ability. Sorry, is everybody, if, in case everyone is not familiar with the clairs, I could see a question coming, maybe. Okay, so um when we talk about psychic abilities, we call them clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and claircognizance. These are the main ones. The word clair comes from French, which means clear. And so when you talk about clairvoyance, is clear seeing. Claircognizance is clear knowing. Clairsentience is clear feeling, and clairaudience is clear hearing. The key word here is clear, because is it clear from what, right? It's clear from the physical world. It's clear from, so it's the seeing, the feeling, the knowing, and the hearing that goes beyond what we physically perceive. That's what it is, essentially. That's what it is when we talk about psychic abilities. And yes, for me, it was the most prominent one is always being clairsentient. So even when I do, talk to the dead, or I do obviously use clairvoyance and stuff, but I feel them in my body a lot. So whenever I feel, not I feel them, I feel the conversation that we're having, like the words that they're telling me. Like, it's all, I try to translate it into English. That's my job. Right? As a medium, I translate the conversation into English, but I actually don't always hear words. I receive signals of energy that comes through images, colors, sensations in my body. Very often when I ask somebody how they passed, they make me feel the part of the body that was in pain when they passed. And so I get to sort of like put the pieces together, to understand a little bit more what happened there. But yes, it's a whole translation of many different things that are happening at once. It's fascinating. It is.
Extremely fascinating. And I love that you bring that up. It's a translation of so many things that are happening at once because I think, and this is something that you say often as well, is that we all have psychic abilities. It's
Yeah.
not just this gift that we're given, and some people are more special than others. Though I do think some people are born with an advanced level of psychic abilities compared to others, but we're all intuitive, right? And we can all strengthen our psychic abilities, which is something that you touch on often. But I think with the different clairs and the different ways of kind of receiving information from, a different realm, people struggle with kind of trusting the information that they're getting, right? So you talked about your training and now you're using your gifts to help people, but how were you able to kind of trust what you were sensing, right? Whether it was through clairsentience or clairaudient, like how were you able to fully like trust in again what you were sensing, who you were talking to, etc.
Yeah. It was a combination of different things. So first of all, I have to say that the all of the work that I have done to psychologically, mentally and emotionally heal from the narcissistic abuse, from the bullying, from all of that, prior to ever even contemplating psychic abilities, like all of that work, I now realize that it was a massive help, because I had freed myself from so much already, right? And remember that when we experience these things, the abuse or toxic relationships or bullying or all these things, remember that that's what creates disconnection, right? So when we come out of the womb, we are all, like you said, we all have an intuition. We're all completely connected to ourselves, to our instincts. Babies, know when they can get up and walk, right? They learn that, right? Because they follow their instinct with that. But things happen throughout our life as we grow up that make us disconnect from that inner guidance. And so if you experience stuff like bullying, toxic relationships, and all this sort of stuff, or abuse and that sort of stuff, it creates even more of a disconnection. So the more work you do prior to your training to heal from all of that, the better it's going to be. Yeah. So, because healing from abuse, from all these things, is going to allow you to create that self-trust, even without the psychic abilities, even before that. It's going to allow you to come back to trusting yourself, trusting your body, trusting even your thoughts, what your mind is telling you. Because when you're going through that sort of stuff, you can't trust your mind because it just twists it, everything. I personally had OCD, and my mind was telling me, wow, literally a different movie every day, a different movie every day. Brilliant. And so I could not trust any of that, right? So all of that psychological and emotional work that I've done before was a huge help, because by the time I got to do my training, I felt confident in who I was. I felt like I could trust myself, and I felt like, well, if this is what's coming up for me, then it means that this is who I am. Had I started the training in the middle of my healing, it would have been much more difficult, and it would have taken me a lot longer, for sure.
I love that you're saying that because what I'm hearing you say in all of this is that you have to have a strong sense of self
Yeah.
sovereignty, understand who you are at your core, integrate all your different shadow sides,
Yeah.
so that you have a strong core, strong sense of self, so that when you're getting information from the other side, it's not being filtered through pain and trauma and all these other things that someone could have experienced. But as you were talking too, something popped into my head is, I've had a few people on the show, quite a few people actually, who have psychic abilities and do a lot of work with people in terms of giving them insights, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's talking to their spirit guides, whether it's through mediumship, etc. But a lot of times something that I'm picking up, a thread that I've never thought about before is that a lot of times these people have experienced some sort of narcissistic relationship abuse.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder, this is like, I'm having these thoughts in real time. I haven't given much thought to it. It just popped into my head. I'm like, I wonder if there's like a correlation there because there's quite a few people I've spoken with who are like, yeah, I was in this like narcissistic abusive relationship, a lot of times it's romantic, sometimes it's, with parents or like friends, and they were in some sort of like narcissistic cycle, and breaking free from that cycle kind of allowed them to open up to all of these different psychic gifts that they had, but they were suppressing. So that's interesting. Another thing too is, I know you talked about self-sovereignty and, you healing as a way for you to fully trust the insights that you were receiving. At any point were you scared of the insights that you were receiving? And I asked that question because I know that I've suppressed my psychic abilities throughout my life, and they still creep in, especially in the dream realm when I'm sleeping. So I would say that I'm clairaudient and clairsentient in my waking world. I don't know what abilities I have in my sleeping world, maybe more clairvoyance. But I say all that to say that sometimes I'm afraid of seeing something I
Hmm.
don't want to see. Like, for example, I've seen situations where someone I'm pretty close to would be passing, right? And it won't come true the very next day, but a year from now. So, like a precognitive dreams, right? So, long story short, when you started receiving these insights and your abilities were getting stronger and stronger and stronger, were you at all afraid of what you were receiving?
No, I'm never afraid of that. No, no, I don't feel fear. I always am very honored to receive the information that I receive. I find that actually I was doing a mediumship live event today online, and I was literally saying the same thing. I was saying that it's probably one of the greatest honors of my life to be able to connect people to their loved ones. And I do not I'm not afraid of it. Like I find it such an honor that, such a thing that is being given to me, that I can't be afraid of it. No, I don't. No, no. And I had dreams like similar, like premonitions. Mine were not on specific people when they happen, but I see like somebody, like for example, a really vivid dream that I had was this person coming to me with a coffin, and then I wake up in the morning and they send me a text message that somebody that we both know had passed. So it's like that. But I don't know, as a medium, I don't necessarily fear. I don't, not that I don't fear death, because obviously, we always have that thing, but yeah, actually I'm pretty chill about it. I'm pretty chill about it actually, now that I think about it. I don't I don't see it as the end. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that's what it is. I don't see it at the end. I might fear it because I'm like attached to this life. Obviously, I don't want to let go of my loved ones and everything, but that's a different story. I don't fear it as it being the end of everything that has ever existed. No, I don't see it like that. So
Hmm.
it doesn't make me afraid of what could come through. No.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I figured it'd be very hard for you to do your work if you were afraid. But, I guess I was more asking in the beginning before you started working with clients as these abilities were heightening for you, were you afraid? But it doesn't seem like you were afraid because you've always kind
No.
of sensed spirits around you, even as a child, right? And I think there are different levels of psychic abilities, but I would not consider myself a medium. I don't sense spirits. I'm saying that now, and I'm like, life is very ironic, and imagine like I just start sensing them. But anyways, I haven't had like experiences where I would sense spirits in my waking world. Have visits from spirits, people, loved ones who've passed on when I'm sleeping, but in the waking world, I don't really sense that. And I feel like people who have that type of psychic ability from such a young age, you're kind of fast tracked to kind of be able to, I guess, work with those type of energies, etc. So I love that you brought up the whole thing about not being afraid of death. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on life and death, since because of the work that you do, you've already shared your perspective on the fact that you're not afraid of death. But what really is death? Does death exist? Where do you think we go after this life?
Mm. I can only speak from the experience that I get with the work that I do, obviously. But what I have come to understand is that it's that we're all perpetual. That's the best way that I have to describe it. It's like we're a bundle of energy, right? That gets to enter a vessel, a physical vessel for a certain amount of time. And then once this physical vessel is, call it expired or whatever, once whatever we need to do, whatever our soul is here to do has done it, then we go back to being that bundle of energy. But the soul is perpetual. It doesn't begin and it doesn't end. It's constantly going. So the way that I see death, I see it as a transition, simply. I see it as a transition. I also don't believe we just have one life. And I believe that when we talk about past life, we are actually referring to parallel lives. Because energy is doesn't have time, right? Time is a construct that we have here. And so to call them past lives, to me, doesn't it, I don't know. It's a bit far-fetched to me. I don't know. And I do call them past lives when I do my readings, simply because that's the mainstream way of calling them. But I always say to people, this is also what your soul is experiencing at the same time. We call them past lives because I want people to understand what we're doing there. But I think that they're all parallel lives. I think that we're all experiencing this thing all at the same time, all at once.
And I agree with you. I believe that everything's happening all at once. All of our lives are happening all at once. And it reminds me of the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once.
All at once, yeah.
One of my favorite movies. I need to go back and rewatch it
Yeah.
because I think they do a good job of kind of showing, and I put that in quotation marks because I mean, to the best of their ability, kind of showing what that would look like having multiple parallel lives happening concurrently. Um, So this is where the conversation is going to get a little bit more convoluted because I'm happy that you brought up the whole past life thing, right? So I guess my first question, because sometimes my thoughts come up faster than I can actually articulate them. So I'm going to try to slow down a little bit here and try to properly articulate myself. So my first question is, when thinking about past lives, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, you talked about mediumship connecting people to their past, to their loved ones who've passed away, right? How do
Mhm.
you verify the spirit that you're talking to, right? Like, how do you know you're not talking to, I don't know, that version of that person, but from a different life? Does that make sense? Because if everything's happening all at once, it's like we're dead but alive at the same time.
Yeah,
Dead, you know what I'm talking about. So how do you kind of figure out like what the spirit you're actually talking to? Because what if they're reincarnated again somewhere else? Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I explained that with energy and intention. So intention is what we use to direct energy in a certain way, right? So let's explain it from like a really simple point of view of like a tarot reading, for example, right? So tarot, if I am doing a reading for you, I am taking out the deck and I am setting the intention that I am doing a reading for you. And if you have a specific question that you want to know, like for example, about your career or about love, I am setting the intention that that's what we're going to talk about. Therefore, the energy in which the cards are shuffled, in which the messages are going to come up, is going to follow that intention, right? If I were to ask the same question and do the same type of reading to someone else next to you, they will get a different outcome and different cards because the intention would be different because it would be directed to them, to the person that they are, right? So if you think about, if you apply that to spirits, it's the same thing. So I am talking, whenever I talk to a spirit, I say, I have Jumi here, she would like to speak to her grandmother name, and can I have her come through? And then that directs the intention of the reading. So I know that I am speaking to the grandmother that you want to speak to in the capacity where in the life that where she was your grandmother, right? But then obviously we do have the response that they give us, and very often I get little details or confirmations that only that person could have known or could have given. So that way we have the confirmation that's actually, yes, that's the person that we're talking to. But ultimately it is all how you direct. It's about how you direct the energy. Yeah, it's about how you direct the energy. Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense. Do you ever have moments where a spirit doesn't want to come through? Like you have someone
Um,
in front of you. They usually want to come through. Okay.
yeah. So this is the thing that a lot of people don't don't believe or find
Mm-hmm.
hard to believe. You can speak to whoever you want to speak to. You're using energy. You're using energy. You can speak to whatever whoever you want to speak to. There is no way that somebody is not going to come through. Uh, and people are like, "Oh, you're so sure. How can you be so sure?" Honestly, there is no way that you're not going to contact that person. It is all about energy. It is all about how you direct your energy. They, on the other side, want to speak with us. They're waiting for us to wake up and to understand that we're all in the same place. What we call the other side, it's not another side. It's the same side as us. Okay, I want to clarify this. What we call the other side is the same side as us. It's just that we can't see them because they're made of energy. So when we talk to the dead, all we're doing is speak a different language. So between us and them, that's the difference. You know, when people come, I work with a lot of people who are going through grief, and so we do a lot of, a series perhaps of mediumship sessions to establish for them to be able to establish then a connection for themselves with their loved one, right? And it's all about that. The reason why people can't hear them to begin with. And when I say hear, I refer to like sense them, right? The reason why people can't sense them, it's not because their loved one doesn't want to go, it's because of how they're directing their energy. So they either don't believe that they can speak to them, or they don't believe that it's possible in general to speak to the dead. And they are completely closed off. Um, but we can all do it, and we can all speak to them. It's literally just about learning a language. It's a different language. That's all it is.
An
That really,
energetic language. Yeah.
yeah,
So, can you tell the difference between someone who's crossed over to the other side? I know you said that it's really not the other side, it's just
yeah,
different dimensions all kind of like running parallel with to each other. But can you tell the difference between someone who's crossed over to the dimension of, spirits? I'm just, using layman terms here versus
yeah,
a ghost that is still tethered to the earth, versus a spirit that's left their body but they have not crossed over. Can you tell the difference? And do you have
yeah.
some of those show up for you sometimes?
Absolutely, yes. So the difference is in the vibration. So there's the way I experience it, because obviously you speak to 10 different mediums, they experience it in 10 different ways. Yeah. So you have to understand that every person has a very specific way of reading. That's why it's like so personal, and it's hard to mainstream, right? Because we have to understand that it's all a unique thing, the way that we do it. We can all learn it, but we have to understand how we do it, right? But anyway, so the way that I experienced it, I experienced three different things. So, three different types of vibration. So, if somebody is reincarnated, I experience a vibration that feels really far away. And I usually don't see or hear anything, but I just feel energy. It's just like waves of energy. That's all I sense. And I feel them far away. And when I interact with them, they come from like their energy comes from a different angle, let's say, right? A picture like if you have like three doors, they come from a different door, right? The people who have reincarnated. But they still come and can still interact with them, can still get the messages and everything. The people who have crossed have a really high vibration. um they feel very wise, full of wisdom, very happy, very open to communicating, very eager to communicate as well. And those are the ones that you can tell their proper personality of how they were here, because they want to communicate. And I sense that there's an openness that says, no, I want them to know that it's me, so that there's a lot of information coming through. And then the souls who have passed, but are not necessarily aware of it, they have a very low vibration. I sense distress, anxiety, terror very often, fear, that sort of stuff. They're very, very low vibration. And at that point, as mediums, and I do hope that every medium does this. This is how I was taught. So if you're a medium that you're listening and you don't do it, open yourself up to this maybe. But we must help them. We must help them. If we find a soul that is stuck, you don't want to leave them there. You don't want to leave them that's torture. That's like a low vibration of terror, anxiety, and fear, and all of that. They often, this the instances in which I encountered them were people who had passed suddenly, so not from an illness that could have, prepared them or anything like that. They were passed suddenly, violently as well. um, and often they don't know where they are. So you have to tell them, this is where you are. Sometimes they know where they are, but they don't want to actually cross. We call it like go towards the light, which just means reunite with energy. That's what it is, right? Going towards the light. That's that. But they're afraid, because from where they are, they feel like they would be leaving their loved ones behind. And so in that case, you can talk to them and you can say, I'm here to help you. I can help you cross. I can help you go towards the light. And then you can come back and you will see how much better you can sense them. And then at that point, when I find these souls, the way that I do help them, I have different guides that help me do that. I use different spirit guides. One of them is my grandmother, actually, because the first time I encountered someone stuck, I was like, oh God, what do I do? What do I do? And I had a guide there. And then the first person, the first soul that came through for me was my grandmother. And she was like, don't worry, we got this. Just let us do it and we'll help them. And they just take them. And that's it. That's how it works for me, at least.
Yes, I've had someone else on the show talk about the need to cross over spirits that are still tethered to the earth. She actually came up with a crossover prayer that people can use to help cross over loved ones. So
Beautiful.
I think it's really important what you're saying. And do you kind of do any sort of protection before a session or clear your space after a session to kind of get rid of those energies, whether good or bad, after a reading or even before you get into a reading? Is there like a protection and a clearing after?
Multiple times a day, every day. Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's part of a routine. So every time I do a session, I prepare the space and then I cleanse my own energy and I connect and then I close it off and re-cleanse my energy again. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what is the benefit of re-cleansing your energy? I mean, outside of me kind of jumping to the conclusion of like, of course, you're making sure that your energy remains yours and you're not tethered to
Yeah.
energy that does not serve you. But if you don't cleanse it, are there sort of like spiritual ramifications of that or energetic ramifications if you're not properly clearing yourself and, protecting your energy?
I mean, there could be. Yes, there could be. You can become drained. Whatever it is that's going to end up draining your energy, then it's up to you to look into that because it could be a million different things. But you will end up draining your energy. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. If there is one thing that to anyone doing this work or anyone starting out with this, you have to get into the mindset that this is what you have to do. Like you have to show up with a cleansed energy for the work that you're doing. So to serve the people that you're serving, you have to, when you go to eat at a five-star restaurant, they give you the plates, very well cleaned, and clean like tablecloths and all of that. And you want to do exactly the same. You want your energy to be completely unbiased. You want your own energy to be turned off, like your own internal energy to be turned down, because otherwise you're going to end up reading yourself and you don't want to do that. So you want to just be able to separate your own energy to the energy that you're using to read, and then utilize the energy that you're using to read to do the reading, to connect to the other side, to connect to the person that you're reading, da 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 da, and then disconnect yourself from all of that and reconnect yourself to yourself.
Okay. And so the way you have it set up, can spirits like come to you without your consent? Because some mediums talk about the fact that they'll be walking down an aisle in a grocery store and they see someone, like someone is next to them, and that person's dead grandparent keeps like tapping the medium on the shoulder like, hey, tell them this, tell them that. Do you have boundaries in place to be like, hey, I'm not working right now, so do not disturb my life? Or do
Yeah.
do you do they just come up to you?
No, no, I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to me. Because it will. I'm a very, very sensitive person, and I would get very overwhelmed if that would happen to me. I mean, if I go to the market, I get anxiety because I'm so overwhelmed just by going to, and I love it, but I can only resist like 5 minutes because that is too much, and I sense too much. So I no, I intentionally close myself off for that. Yeah.
Yeah,
However,
mhm.
I do sense the spirits around me. I choose not to when I go outside the house. But if I'm in the house, so many times I feel like a spirit here and there. But it's okay. It's just, I live with me and my boyfriend. I feel very safe at home. I feel very, the energy is great here and all of that. So I don't have an issue with that. But if I were to be outside, I'm like, no, it's too much. I can barely cope with the outside. Like, don't give me that too,
I
please.
know, I know, I know. I can imagine. Okay, so you said something interesting earlier about about spirits who get tethered to the earth. A lot of times you've noticed that they've passed away um like very quickly without unsuspecting, usually violent. They weren't expecting to die because it wasn't through an illness or anything like that. So they're still tethered to the earth. But what I find interesting is that I've heard people say that, you choose your life, you choose your parents, and you also choose how you exit from this world. So I always had this impression that, like, once you kind of leave the physical body, there's an instant remembrance of why you chose to have the experience that you had. So, like, why would you be tethered to the earth if you picked the life, if you almost picked the trauma, etc.? So do you believe that people pick their life and how they're going to die? And what are your thoughts about spirits really not having that remembrance of the fact that they're this, like, unbounded energetic being?
Mhm. I do believe that we pick, yes, to a certain extent. I think that we choose at a soul level, we have soul contracts and agreements and all that sort of stuff. So at a soul level, there's a lot of stuff that we choose, yes, certain relationships, but obviously things also unfold here as we live through. Like, it's not completely every single day planned. No, I don't believe that. I believe that we choose like key people, key experiences, and all that, but a lot of it unfolds the way that it has to unfold here as we experience this life. So that's one thing. But with the remembering, from the conversations that I had with souls on the other side, the remembering happens at the crossing, not at the passing, which is two different things. Like, the passing is the moment that the body, that the separation from the energy of the energy from the body, and then the crossing is the going back together with the main energy. And yes, that is my understanding, and that's when it happens, the remembering. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I know you also do, Akashic readings, which makes sense because I'm sure that informs your work in mediumship. And we also touched on parallel lives. And usually when we talk about Akashic records, parallel lives, that's also in conversation about karma, right? Paying off
Mhm.
karmic debt, coming back and, reliving cycles so that you can break free from those cycles. And I'm setting up this question this way because I want to know your thoughts on reincarnation. Do you
Mhm.
truly believe that we have to come back and continue to learn lessons until we learn the lessons so that we can, stop reincarnating and, like, move on from this earthly realm? Or do you have a different perspective?
I never think about reincarnation that much, actually. That's a very interesting question. Thank you for asking me. It's making me think. Thank you. Um, I feel that I always go back to the everything is happening at once. Like, to me, that's the origin of everything, right? So if we reincarnate, which we do, which I know we do, we come back, but from a karmic point of view, let me just see. From a karmic point of view, yes, because I don't necessarily think that we have to live through exactly the same things. No, it's not. I don't think we're stuck in Groundhog Day, over and over again, the same thing. I don't believe that. But I believe that that a soul also develops. And so I think that through the different lives, you're always sovereign. So in some lives, you can choose to go towards like a dark path. And then in a life after that, you might want to learn from what that experience was, which is a little bit, like that. Um, but I don't think we're stuck in Groundhog Day, constantly reliving the same thing. No. I think it's bigger than that. Yeah. I feel that it's bigger than that.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm on this
Right.
journey of trying to figure out, what really is the purpose of reincarnation. So this question kind of comes up quite often when having
Mm.
conversations like this because you can't ignore that aspect of, the
Yeah.
conversation talking to spirits who've crossed over, etc., and talking about people's past lives, quote unquote, or parallel lives. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
important to kind of talk about reincarnation. Okay, so what do you say to people who feel like the work that you're doing is, evil or not of the light? Do you come across those types of people? Have you had to wrestle with that? What would you say to people who have like such a harsh reaction to the work that you do?
Oh, I have so much love for them. I honestly have so much love from these people. I believe that everybody's entitled to their opinion. Absolutely. I'm not here to convince anybody. I really am not here to convince anyone. All I'm here to do is to just follow what I feel is my mission, and that's it. So I don't get offended. I really don't. And I have an immense amount of love for these people because the way that I'm seeing it is w what could be going on in this person's life for them to be in that space. That's all I'm seeing, and I had to like block a couple of people online because they were like, you're an evil witch and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's fun. That's fun, isn't it? So it always makes me smile and all that because I just think I really hope they heal. And I say this with them with an immense amount of love. I really hope they heal because there is if we're stuck in that, I think you're stuck in fear. And if you're living in fear, I have no I can only send you love. If you're living in fear like that or in pain like that, I can only send you love.
Thank you for sharing that because I know that that's something that's held people back in the past of utilizing their psychic abilities, especially those who have pretty heightened psychic abilities, to use it to help others, right? And to bring insights from the other side because of this like fear of being judged or looked down on as doing something quote unquote evil, right? So
Mm.
I know that you offer tarot readings and spirit guide sessions. What is the difference between both of those? Because I've heard tarot readers talk about um kind of doing the readings in with someone's spirit guides. So I just want to
Oh,
hear
that's
from you. Um, what is the difference between a tarot reading and then someone coming to you for a spirit guide session or a spirit guide reading?
okay. Um, First of all, I want to say that all these things are simply different modalities to read energy, different tools to read energy, even mediumship, right? Mediumship is a technique or a modality to utilize, sorry, to interpret and read energy of the other side or the afterlife or whatever, right? Tarot I utilize as a tool to read the energy of the right now. I really want people to understand that tarot is not there to predict your future. Please. Okay, please don't get into that because if you get sucked into, I want to know how this relationship is going to go, if I'm going to get pregnant, if I'm going to get with this guy, or don't go that because you're doing that from such a place of lack. And I'm sorry if this triggers some people, but from desperation, which you cannot get a good experience out of that. You're doing it for the wrong reasons. Tarot is such a beautiful, fascinating tool to be utilizing to interpret the energies that we have in the right now. And so I, for example, do a weekly tarot reading for the week, right? I'm not predicting the future. My intention when I ask the question with that, I simply say, Spirit, we want to know what energies we're working with this week. What is it that we need to know about the energies this week? That's it. And then I get the cards and we discuss what comes up. But it's the same thing, if it could be a love reading, it could be a career reading, it could be like it just is a beautiful tool for self-development and for interpreting the energies that are the current energies. And it's fascinating. It's so fun and so fascinating. I love tarot so much. I love tarot so much. Um, Spirit guides are another modality to read energy, but the energy of the person. So you can read the energy inside of the person. So in that case, you would be reading like the chakras, for example, and you would be reading like the different parts of the inside of the inner energetic system of the person, let's call it. When we do spirit guides, we read the energy around the person. It's more about that for me, at least. This is how I utilize it. And we all have spirit guides, first of all. That's the question I get asked the most, where people are like, but if I book a spirit guide and I don't have one, you do have spirit guides. Please, you're full of spirit guides all around you. And spirit guides are simply energies that we have around us that help us with different things. And I would say that some of the spirit guides, based on my experience when I do the readings, some of the spirit guides are external to us. Some of the spirit guides are parts of us. They are an expression of our multidimensional self. They are an expression of our whole energetic being. Um, and it's very interesting. I absolutely love working with spirit guides. The way that I work with them, the way that I do a reading is I ask the person if there's anything that they would like to know, would like to have a spirit guide for. So, for example, is the reading because you've just gone through a separation and you want support with that, or you're trying to figure out the next step in your life and you want support with that? Is there a specific thing, or you just want to know whoever wants to come forward? Because I can assure you, you've got loads of guides around, but it's we can see if you have a direction that you want to go into, or we can just see what the energy is around you. And very often, yeah, I get one or multiple guides coming through, and sometimes they are spirit guides from the external to the person. I've had a few actually readings where where the guide was somebody that they knew in a past life, or it was someone, or even a loved one, that had passed, that has become a spirit guide for them, or somebody that they knew from before they, at a soul level, before they came into this life. Like there's loads, I had spirit guides that were not human, animals or all sorts. And then I have spirit guides that feel much more internal to the person, that are more of an expression of a side of themselves. So like an inner child kind of thing, like that. So yeah, it's so interesting. It's fun. I love spirit guides.
It's very fascinating, all of it. And I love what you said about tarot. It's not about predicting the future, it's about kind of getting a reading of current energies. And I think a lot of people use tarot to predict the future, get a sense of this is what's coming up. And I'm always a little wary of that because, one, I think that our subconscious mind is very powerful. So if you plant something in there, it could become a self-fulfilling, prophecy, right? Whether and then you beg the question, is like, was this supposed to happen, or because someone told you it was going to happen, so you created or did actions that would lead to that outcome? So I'm always very wary about um, predictions using tarot. So I really like that you kind of distinguish that. And I've had someone on the show who actually is, she's a psychic herself, and she actually does not care for tarot at all. She's actually the only person I know that kind of is very against tarot because she says that it has a
Okay.
lot of energy that's not necessarily good energy, and people don't understand how powerful that tool is. And she kind of equates it to the Ouija board. Like for her, because we all know that using the Ouija board, you probably don't. Yeah, I see it behind you. Yeah. So she's kind of like it's the same thing, and a lot of times people are being influenced by black magicians from the fourth dimension. So she has a very strong opinion regarding tarot reading. But where you guys kind of align is that she believes that, as psychics, we don't. I'm saying we. I think we all have psychic abilities.
Yep.
No psychic can fully predict the future. So she's always kind of her word of caution to people is that if you're going to someone, they're like, I can tell you, when you're going to meet your person and all that stuff. She's always like, you don't want to go to that person. Not saying that they're a bad person, but just predicting someone's future could be pretty harmful. That was a mouthful there. I don't know if you have anything else to add to it, but I just wanted to
I
touch on that.
do. I mean, it's not necessarily like it is not possible to predict someone's future simply because we all have the power of choice. The life is the life that we live, the life that we create for ourselves, full stop. And then someone, like you said, oh, somebody predicted the future and then that thing happened. Well, why did it happen? you know, did you choose? Because the power of thought is all it is, right? That's what drives our lives. Did you want to really believe that to the point that it actually the energetic power of your thoughts made it happen because somebody validated you with a reading telling you that was predicting your future? No, right? So we have to be definitely very careful. I totally agree with this other lady guest that you're speaking about when she says don't go to the people that say that they can predict your future. I totally agree with that. I also wanted to say something in terms like from a tarot reader perspective. Um, we have to do that with the maximum amount of responsibility. We have to do that. We are working with lives, with human beings. If somebody decides to open themselves up, but if, to, and not only tarot, to anything with regards to the world that we cannot see, right? So be it a mediumship, be it spirit guides, be it tarot, like whatever it is, we have the responsibility of doing that with the highest ethics ever. You cannot play with people's lives, and the way that I absolutely hate when people do a tarot reading and it's all doom and gloom. This card has come up now, everybody's terrified of the tower. Every time I do a tarot reading and the tower comes up, people are like, oh god, the tower. I'm like, what do you mean? Yes, because when the tower comes out, it's catastrophe. I was like, who told you this stuff? Like, this is not helpful in any way. Like, this is not what it is about. You have to be really responsible with what you're saying to people. Like, you're literally working with people's lives. So, as a psychic, as a tarot reader, as somebody who works with energy, like, even if whoever is listening, if you want to work with someone, please do your research. Please trust your intuition with them. Go to somebody that just inspires, trust, not because they tell you, oh, I can predict your future. I have this like, 100%, what is it called? Like, I guess everything, you know what I mean? Like, I have this. Don't believe that stuff. Just go with your vibe, just follow your intuition, do your research on the person. How did they get where they got to? And, just be this discernment, have discernment. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the best psychics are the people who empower the person that's coming to them
Yeah.
looking for a reading, because I believe that again, we've said this throughout the conversation that we all have intuitive gifts, we all have psychic abilities, and a lot of times what a psychic is telling you, or whoever you're going to kind of do a reading for you, most of the time it shouldn't be like brand new information. If anything, it should be confirmation of what you were already feeling, and maybe you didn't couldn't put it into words. You probably need more insight into it. So going to a practitioner who is able to has a stronger psychic ability could probably kind of feed in those gaps that you are struggling to fill in, right? So that's what I always try to tell people, that it shouldn't be like brand new information or anything that's like doom and gloom and give me extra money and we can clear you and all of that stuff. You probably want to stay away from those people. Um,
Yeah.
so thank you so much for, sharing that additional insight into tarot readings and, spirit guide sessions. Now I want to talk about something that you're passionate about, which is, well, you're passionate about all these things, but something else that you're super passionate about is like this whole concept of the new earth.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a few people about this, and I'm going to continue to have this conversation around that because I'm trying to fully understand it. I think everybody explains it in different ways. Some
Yeah.
people believe it's a physical earth that we would, step into, that's part of this dimension, but like a higher timeline. Other people believe it's a mental realm, right? So kind of heaven on earth, but it's in between your ears. So I just want to hear your thoughts on what the new earth is and why you consciously make sure that your work feeds into that consciousness of a new earth.
Yeah. So to me, New Earth is not another planet. Most definitely not. No. I believe that this Earth is beautiful and I don't want to change planet. I don't want to go on a rocket and go somewhere else. I'm happy. I'm happy on this Earth. No, I don't think that New Earth is another planet. No. To me, New Earth is a vibration. New Earth is a vibration. And it is the result of people coming home to themselves. That's how I see it. What does that mean? So coming home to ourselves means getting rid of all the programming and conditioning that we've been, you know, bombarded with, because those are all external to ourselves. Those are all the things that disconnect us from our authenticity, from our intuition and psychic abilities, right? So getting rid of the programming, so that you can see yourself better, and also heal the shadows, right? Heal, take responsibility for what you've experienced in life, and take your responsibility towards healing that. So healing mentally, healing emotionally, and yeah, so it's like it's the both. It's the inside and the outside, and clearing all of that, healing all of that, and trying to stay on the course of following your authenticity, because I truly believe that that's all we're here to do. Like, we're not here to work on 9 to 5. We're not here to do any of that. We're here to just find our authenticity and lead with that wherever it may lead us. Some of us are meant to become doctors and healers and other types of things. Some of us are artists. Some of us are psychics, for profession. Some of us, there's so many different things. But I don't believe that we're here to do any mechanical job that a robot could do. We're not here for that. We are creative beings. And I think that the combination of trauma and, hardships that we've had in life, and the external conditioning has forced us, because they've bombarded our subconscious so much, has forced us to believe that we're here to get a job. But no, I really don't think that that's what we're here to do. I think that I think that this human life is supposed to be experienced through creativity, whatever creativity is for each one of us.
I love what you said about, it's really about finding our way back to ourselves. And you talked about the new earth being a vibration, a change in consciousness, a change in awareness. And I think that's what everybody is starting to sense, because I think a lot of people are frustrated with the 9 to 5. A lot of people are frustrated with the systems that have been put in place to kind of keep us like indentured slaves. Like, life is not free. You're born into a system and you're put to work almost immediately, going to school for a certain amount of time, and then, going into the corporate life for the rest of your life until you quote unquote retire, if you even have the means to retire. So I think what you're saying is very, very relevant for this day and age. And I think the shadow part of humanity is also coming up to the surface, right? Like so many things are being revealed and so many people are waking up. And there was something else that I heard you say on a different podcast, which is you believe that a lot of the pain and suffering that is experienced here on earth comes from the fact that people have lost a connection to themselves, their humanity, and because they can't fully be themselves, that trauma, that pain, is a cause for all of the wars and the abuse that we experience. And I was like, oh my gosh, I actually really resonate with that. And I feel like people cause pain because the term hurt people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, I like how you broke that down. So it sounds more like it's a state of mind than
Yeah.
actually like, I don't know, transporting to a better version of Earth.
Yeah. No, I don't think we need a better version of this planet. I don't think there's anything wrong with the planet itself. I think the planet is great. The planet is perfect. And the planet can kick us out anytime. She's hosting us, but she can decide and kick us out anytime with like in a blink of an eye. So I think that the planet is strong. I think that yes, it's that vibration. And then when we do all of that, when we do that healing, when we do that coming home to ourselves, the result that I call the new earth is the fact that when we live at that place of authenticity, we have more compassion, we have more tolerance towards each other, right? We are not pointing fingers because we're so much more open to someone being different from us, you know? And I actually love differences. I really do think that differences are what makes us strong. And when somebody is totally different from me, even like with the discomfort, because sometimes you're like, "Ooh, why is that? Ooh, I don't agree with that. I cannot possibly agree with that." But then after a while, I become curious and I'm like, well, Gloria, why is it making, it's the trigger. The trigger is about you, it's not about the other person, right? So what are you curious about this person? What can this person teach you that you don't know yet? But we can't do that if we're still stuck in the trauma ourselves. We will always be pointing fingers simply because if we're stuck in the trauma and in the pain ourselves, we feel like if we're open to other people, we're not getting looked at. And of course, we're in pain, right? And so it all stems from that. And I think that the more people are realizing this, I think more and more people are realizing this. I absolutely love the younger generations. I am in love with the Gen Z. I say this all the time. I'm like, I love them because they're so open and so free. And I do also, I'm a millennial. I do also love millennials because I believe that we are the therapy generation. I don't know if that resonates, but I feel like amongst all of us, we are the ones that we decided, the majority of us, or at least, a big part of us decided, okay, it's time to break certain cycles. So we're like good with that. So I think that there's a lot to take from the different generations, and I see it makes me so sad. Like I see so many people pointing fingers, oh, the youth now, they can't do this, they can't do that. I'm like, stop. Who hid your toys? Who broke your toys when you were little? What happened there? Look at that instead of looking at these guys trying to do something, and get themselves inspired. Come on.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think we thrive off of each and every one of our uniqueness, and what makes us
Yeah.
different. And if we lean into it from a place of curiosity and not look at it from a place of like fear and danger and like this person is going to, I don't know, take the attention away from me, or like maybe I won't matter anymore because this person who's so different from me is like, I don't know, taking up the spotlight. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I think we're just
Yeah.
so afraid of what we cannot relate to. But if we lean into it from a place of curiosity, it opens up your mind to like different ways in which people view the world and like adds more to your own perception as well. And it allows you to be more yourself, right? You can hold space for someone that's different to you and hold space for yourself. It doesn't have to be either or. I think we're shifting away from like survival of the fittest, right? I think we're transcending that um animalistic part of our nature. So
Yeah.
Well, I really enjoyed this conversation and thank you for going down the different rabbit holes with me. I
Thank
have to
you.
ask, have you shifted in perspective on anything recently? And I always ask this question to all of my guests because we're constantly shifting. So please share
Yeah.
any insights that you have.
Actually, something happened recently that I never in a million years thought would ever happen to me in my life. I never ever thought this was literally like the last thing, but I became a vegetarian.
Oh,
That
that is
was a
a big shift.
massive, yes, that was a massive, massive shift. And I think it's because of this whole, spiritual journey, because obviously we are in no way arrived. Like nobody arrives. If you're in this to arrive somewhere, get it out of your head. Like nobody ever arrives, just so you know. So we're in constant, in this constant journey. And and one of the results recently, a few weeks ago, it just shifted. Like I literally felt it. You know, when you feel it moving in your body, like the cells are doing something, right? And all of a sudden I was like, I cannot eat meat anymore. I cannot do that. And I've started looking at the meat, and I was a meat eater. Like I always loved it. And I can't anymore. All I see is I just see the animals. I just see the souls. I see the souls, I see the animals, and I can't do that. I can't do that. So that was a massive shift for
Oh,
me.
that's a huge shift. Very fascinating. I feel like I'm actually having the opposite shift to you, which I find
Okay.
intriguing, which um I love carbs, but there's just been this shift within me. Like you said, you feel the shift where it's like um my body is craving more animal-based food. Which I kind of found fascinating because if anything, I thought I'd be kind of shifting more into the vegetarian, maybe perhaps vegan space, but for some reason, um, there's this like pull towards more animal protein, um, which again, I feel like as I ingest it, I'm always like, oh, honoring the souls here that are feeding
Yeah.
me. So I resonate with your shift, but from the opposite
Yeah, from the
spectrum.
opposite.
So well, thank you so much for sharing that. That was a interesting shift for sure. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you, work with you?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You can find me. Well, you can go to gloriabattini.com, which is my website. But if you fancy coming along to some live events, I do host live events at least 3 times a week. I'm a teacher on an app that's called Insight Timer, and I host live events there, but they're also streamed on YouTube. So you can find my YouTube channel or you can find me on Insight Timer. I do all sorts of things. I do a weekly tarot reading. I do moon ceremonies as well, because that's another one of my passions. I absolutely love working with the moon. So I host moon ceremonies regularly, and then I do readings for the audience, mediumship, energy readings, Akashic records readings, like I just love it. So
Yeah, I'm gonna
I
leave
do
all
that
those.
through live events. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. I'm gonna leave all the links to that in my show
Yeah.
notes. Really quickly, what's a moon ceremony?
So a moon ceremony is when you follow the phases of the moon. There are different, so there are two main energies. You can follow the daily moon, which is great, by the way, but the two main energies that we work with are the new moon and the full moon. And so the lunar cycle is 28 to 30 days long. The new moon is at the beginning of the cycle. So when the moon is dark in the sky, you can't see it. And that's a time where you set intentions, plant a new seed, and start something fresh, right? Starting a fresh cycle. And then 2 weeks down the line, after the new moon, we have the full moon, which is the peak of the moon cycle. And that's when the moon is bright in the sky. And what it does, it illuminates everything, right? So, because the moon in astrology is connected to our subconscious and the part of only us can see, sorry, the part of us that only we can see, uh, during a full moon, everything comes to the surface, everything that is between where we are and what we want and the intentions that we set and the goals that we set at the new moon, right? So we use these two energies every month to as a self-development tool. And I find it a very magical way to do self-development to work with the moon. It's also got different energies according to the astrological sign that the moon is in. And it's a very powerful thing because if you do all of your new moons and all of the full moons during the year, by the end of the 12 months, you would have touched on every single area of your life. And you would have intentionally shifted, intentionally worked with your subconscious, intentionally decided what's going to go into your subconscious in every single area of your life. And it's very, very transformative. So we do that every 2 weeks, every new moon and every full moon
Oh,
in
fantastic. I need to join that. Well,
very
thank
cool.
you, Gloria, for stopping by Shifting Dimensions. It was absolutely a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Jimmy, for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you.